Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the show, the Vegan World 2026 Moonshot podcast. And today we're going to be talking about how to catalyze the vegan transformation. A catalyst is something that you add to a reaction to make it happen much, much faster. And currently, people are trying to go vegan, but a majority of them don't stick with it. And so organizations have been trying to come up with ways to help people stick with it. Vegan Outreach and Challenge 22, you can actually get mentors to help you. But uh, despite that, the rate at which people are not sticking to it is still huge. So almost 80% or more of the people who try to go vegan don't stick with it. So this is why I wanted to talk to um, our guests today, Kelly Kerr and Ray Kowalchuk. Let me bring them on. Hello, Kelly. How are you? And Ray, nice to see you. So tell us about VeganAbler. It's such a beautiful name. It's an enabler of veganism. Tell us what the idea is and how are you making it happen? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. So the name and the idea came to me approximately 4 years ago when I was looking to sort of pivot from my corporate work in the .com industry, and I was noticing I was doing I was a food ambassador, and but I was also an activist, and I had started giving out cooking food for all-day vigils. And I really enjoyed that type of outreach. And then I was doing brand ambassador, and people were coming to me and asking me questions related to veganism, and I really liked that concept of someone coming to me. So I created the VeganAbler, which you can see by my logo. It says I'd like to go vegan, and it was basically helping people eliminate those buts, tackling any of those, common myths, or whatever worries they might have about going vegan, and helping them, whether it be through shopping or just revamping their kitchen, with cooking, obviously, and just sort of general overall support. And people liked the idea, but it didn't really sort of seem to gain much traction at the time. And now, COVID has sort of expedited the very obvious situation of our food system, and food insecurity, and the need to go vegan for our environment, unless we want another pandemic. So I believe we're going to really have a tidal wave of people who want to go vegan, and therefore we need these vegan coaches. So I'm kind of surrendering the name, the VeganAbler, to VeganAbler, and organizing a movement of VeganAblers to inspire a global movement and develop a network of vegan coaches in anticipation for this wave of new vegans.
Mm-hmm. So do you envision the coaches to be local to people so they can help them with their shopping and things like that? What you think? What you're thinking about?
Exactly. I mean, Vegan Outreach and Challenge 22, like they're great what they're doing, but they're very much like guided challenges. So like they're very structured, and VeganAbler is more of like a movement. It's not really like an org. We're not going to give you challenges. We want to be, to the extent that we can in COVID, like up close and personal, and anywhere and everywhere. And, just making that the term and the people who are driving this movement, noticeable, and normalizing vegan food. That's really what we want to do, is normalize vegan food. So whether it be popping up at farmers markets, giving out food at environmental events, activist events, wherever it may be, reaching out to organizations, to try to get vegan food on their menus, things like that, and just working with a bunch of that's the goal of the how I see it sort of scaling, is working with various organizations to make vegan food as accessible and again as normal as possible.
That's a great idea, having a table at a farmer's market and handing out VeganAbler cards and food, of course, and free food, so people can taste it and say, yeah, I want to do it too. How can I do it, right?
Yeah, well, around the same time that we created the VeganAbler Facebook page, we also created another page called Never Buy This Product Again. And the goal was to make a product, sort of, maybe a general product of food that, people think that they can't give up, and why they might not go vegan, and give the recipe away. So the idea was, we don't want repeat business. We want you to learn how to make it at home. So we kind of thought about kind of doing that in tandem as part of the pop-up market. That's kind of, when I've been doing pop-up markets, that's what I would sell. I would sell food under that label, as well as the VeganAbler, and kind of merging those two together.
I also try to get a little bit of publicity for it, because it's like the world's worst business model. We don't want repeat business. We want to sell this to you once, and you follow the label on the package and make your mayonnaise yourself next time. So hopefully that'll generate a little bit of interest, so that people can pay more attention and get involved in the project.
Because people also have this misconception that veganism is expensive as well, and so we want to show people that it's not expensive, and bring people back into the kitchen as well. I know we all live in a very busy society, and people feel very pinched for time, but like the amount of time that people are actually in the kitchen now is half of what it was our parents' generation. And looking at statistics, more than, or almost 50% of people would not want to cook a meal if it requires more than a half hour of their time, which is like, that's sad, right? You can't prepare much in a half hour. So, so getting people to appreciate food more.
Yeah, we are getting to be a society based on convenience, and getting someone else to do the work for us, so we can do our busy things, right? So which is basically making the next game for our children to play, right? Things like that.
Exactly, and that's what contributes to like the obesity crisis as well, right? Because most of the convenient foods are not the healthiest foods, so. We want to shift that as well. And don't get me wrong, I mean, there's a need for that transitionary vegan food, because this is what people are used to. We're used to the standard Canadian diet or standard American diet, or just the standard diet, which is like high fat, high salt, high sugar, all those like pleasure traps, right? And so, it's all needed. But we definitely want people to be more mindful about what they're putting in.
Have you created I was talking to Tabe Atkins and Sahil, the mother-son team, like a couple of episodes ago, maybe 3 or 4 episodes ago. And they were talking about creating the same food, but in a whole food plant-based version. So it's really, it tastes the same as what you're eating, but it's healthy for you. So it's like, you can have your cake and eat it too type of thing, right? So have you looked into that kind of VeganAbler angle?
No, but I think that could be something that, like, if there's a VeganAbler that specializes in that type of cooking, that would be their specialty, right? Like, I make a lot of transitionary foods that, do have high oils or things like that, right? But at the same time, like making people aware that that you need these transitionary foods just to kind of get over that fear of whatever it is that's stopping you from being vegan. And then we need to change our taste buds a bit at a time. It takes a while to get adjusted to things, right? So, my concern about saying like, go vegan or, like start eating, plant-based and eat whole foods plant-based, and people are going to be like, that's just too much, right? So I think you need to have those transitionary foods, but obviously, and I think everyone knows that, even now, people who eat meat, like, know that eating vegetables and fruit are the best for your health, in their whole form.
Right. Yeah.
There
But
was an element of that, readjusting recipes to fit a different shape. So whether it's to be full whole food plant based, or to just find recipes on the internet that sound enticing to you that aren't vegan and veganize them. That veganizing process, knowing your ingredients, is more important than knowing any one recipe. And this is a skill that we want to share with people, because they usually have a recipe. They usually, you suggest veganism to them and they think, what about that recipe that's in my family? That's for, some sort of a pork product or something.
right.
We want to get into that headspace and say, we just need to swap around the ingredients. Let's try it. Let's see how close to grandma's meatloaf we can come.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, but you can compile like a set of best practices for some of these substitutions that you're doing, and then try and make that as close to whole food plant-based as possible, right, over time.
Definitely. Yeah, it's about opening people's minds to trying new foods, right? So if you want to create like an alternative to animal flesh and make it out of seitan, for example, obviously it's not gluten free, so
Right.
big thing right now, right? So you can you start by making that, but then like how can you create quote unquote like meat analogs out of mushrooms and make more foods that way, right? So,
Right.
I mean, there's just so much fun that you can have
Right.
with plants, right? That people they just don't think about, right? Because they're just so used to, you have your meat and that's your plate and it's got meat, and then you base your meal around your meat.
Right.
And so much of it's about cravings that the people are afraid what kind of cravings they might have if they commit to a plant-based diet. And we're familiar with the concept of the pleasure trap, where our cravings are really tied to that fat, sugar, and salt, at least when we have an unhealthy diet. So that's part of the training, is to be aware of that phenomenon and recognize this is what you're actually addicted to. You're not addicted to meat. You're not addicted to dairy. You're not addicted to cheese. You're addicted to this fat, sugar, salt dependency that our minds gravitate towards the easiest way to satisfy that craving, and it'll be through those meaty, cheesy junk food that you're used to. So as we are aware of that, and we have to ride this balance between, we have to please the people that want to know that they have good food waiting for them on the vegan side, yet also try to show that there's a pathway to a healthier way of living. And we know that it's retraining your taste buds and being aware of that pleasure trap. And so at the same time, you have to kind of follow that rules of the restaurant, where you make everything a little bit more salty, a little bit more flavorful and fatty, because you want a happy customer. But when you're talking about lifestyle, you want a healthy customer, because the customer is you. So it's kind of funny, because sometimes Kelly will be making something, and she'll feed it to me, and I'll say it needs more pleasure trap, which I'm sure Doug Lell and Alan Goldhammer are probably horrified to hear their words being used in that manner. But it's a great awareness thing, because I know that I'm after something a little bit more salty or fatty. And in that process, I know that I have a direction to go. I want to try to retrain my taste buds so that I can have a healthier diet and enjoy them all, because the potential for enjoying vegetables is huge. And most people, just so many people that you encounter say, I don't really like vegetables. It's just such a huge world of flavor to rediscover.
Right.
You've been eating junk for so long.
Right. In fact, I remember way back in 2010, I was in India with this group from the University of Iowa, the students who come. And the professor was there. And the professor, Professor Uday Kumar, actually, he got immediately convinced that he has to go vegan. Okay, after listening to my introductory talk, and so he said, "Okay, I'm going vegan." And his wife, Sarah, said, "What? How do you think I'm? How can I make my pastries? I mean, she's a pastry chef. She's an amazing pastry chef. How can I make my pastries without eggs and dairy?" And Uday told her, "That's your challenge. At the end of this year, I want people to say, 'I love your pastries more than what you used to make before.'" So he put that out as a challenge to her, and she actually did it. That's the amazing thing. Right? So she took it upon as a challenge, and uh, at the end, I mean, she was having so much fun trying to create pastries that tasted like what she used to do before, but without the eggs and the dairy. And so she did exactly what you were talking about, Kelly. She came up with substitutes for all of her ingredients initially, and then she became more creative over time. So I used to visit them because I was part of this uh, program that was sending students to India every year. So I used to go visit them, and every time she would be trying her new pastry recipes on me, saying, "What do you think?" So
Right.
it is an adventure, right? It's fun, an adventure.
It definitely is, and I took vegetarian culinary arts program at George Brown College, and one of the courses was raw vegan, and we made some incredible desserts. But even now, like if I had to, I mean, we got amazing raw bakeries in Toronto, but I'm still addicted to the sweet parts, like the more on natural sugars, right? And I think there's all these like great, amazing raw, and recipes that I find all the time, right? That's way more, like you said, more whole foods, plant based, and
Right.
So just like I recognize my own addiction, and I know again that like you get so much more creative when you're making crusts out of nuts and all these other whole foods ingredients, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, again, that's what makes it so much fun.
In fact, I would say that the best key lime pie that I ever had was at a restaurant in New York, and it was a raw, whole food, plant-based key lime pie that they made. I mean, it was incredible what they did with that. And so I think it was walnut and flax seeds or something like that as crust. I mean, people get so creative because we have access to all these different plant foods today that we never did. Our ancestors didn't have that. They didn't have access to all these foods. So I think we are at the right moment in history to make this transformation happen and catalyze it. And it's beautiful that you have taken it upon yourself to be the catalyst. I think it's a great idea. And so, what are you looking for to help you make this thing grow? What do you need?
Yeah, well, I mean, so first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have weekly meetings, and it's my like personal goal. Like I'm going to bring my community management experience from the .com to facilitate the growth by managing, motivating, recruiting, and I think the more people, the more coaches that we have, then the ideas start flowing, and then we can share best practices and sort of move in the direction that we see as sort of having the biggest impact, or maybe we'll have a big impact one place and it won't somewhere else, right? So that's really the first thing I think that we need to do is just start meeting regularly and brainstorming on how we can go about this, because it's obviously going to be much more challenging in a world where, you know, millions are still in, we're still in lockdown here in Toronto, you know.
Mhm.
So you know, I'd love to go on the street and hand out food like, you know, I used to do, you know, at climate events and whatever, but you know, that's going to be a challenge. So how can we get creative in doing this? Although even with markets, I'm getting notifications from markets that I signed up for. You know, they're just moving virtually, so there's still opportunity to do this. You know, even while we're still at home. You know, but then also, you know, we could also take this time to build relationships with organizations who would wish to work with you know, a vegan coach to, you know, educate their employees. You know, it could be free virtual demos or whatever on you know, the benefits of eating a plant-based diet. I'm actually doing that with a startup company. It's a health and wellness app that businesses buy for their employees, so their employees can access this app that has a wealth of health and wellness information, and and they can watch my cooking demos on there. You know, if they search vegan food, you know. So I'm really working with you know, anyone that you know, wants to, like, organizations that want to uh, to help their employees
Right.
eat more plant-based, right? And then working with activist groups as well. I definitely think we should be doing outreach to environmental groups, you know, in adopting plant-based menus. And, you know, I know Gray's worked in the past of, you know, trying to get rescues to adopt a vegan policy when they're having fundraisers and that. And, you know,
Right.
I think that's another potential outreach, you know, to continue, you know, something similar like that, you know, because, you know, there's no reason now for organizations to be serving meat on their menu.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you tried, for instance, getting on the Climate Reality Project and advertising this whole concept of VeganAbler and recruiting people? I think that would be awesome.
No, I didn't think of climate reality. No, not at all. I know Gray has a relationship with Climate Fast here, and we do know the Toronto, the head of the Toronto chapter for Climate Reality, and he's very supportive. Like in the past, actually, I almost catered to Al Gore when they were showing the Inconvenience sequel in Toronto. He was coming here, and they were having a limited screening, like with limited people, and they were working with with Climate Reality, and they asked me about if I could do catering, but we just couldn't get it ready in time. So, but he's very, very supportive. So yeah, I think, and I think that they're going to be more and more supportive than maybe at the time when Cowspiracy was around, and
Right.
You know, it wasn't. It was still taboo. You know, I think now they're having these. They need to have these conversations about switching to plant-based diet.
Yeah, in fact, I'm surprised. You know, I was surprised to see emails coming from the Climate Reality Project to me asking about the white paper, and you know, and they're reading it. Looks like, and seeing the openness now, because this is the truth, right? So the truth has a way of just sticking to, you know, and it'll be there no matter what you do. The truth will be there, and so eventually people are going to see it. That elephant in the room does not go away, you know. So that's the beauty of the elephant in the room. So
absolutely, and the longer this COVID exists, and all these variants that now are happening, and how does it affect the efficacy of the vaccination and all that, and we continue to be in lockdown. Like, the more exasperated people are going to be getting, and they're going to be going online and doing research and realizing that this happens because we eat animals and we disturb the environments of animals, right? So we're seeing that now. I mean, we are seeing it discussed more on mainstream news as well, as to the origins of COVID, so yeah, and we're just seeing, like, I mean, veganism is mainstream. Like, Beyond Meat just did a contract with McDonald's. Now they're in every major restaurant chain, so it's being normalized,
right.
And so I don't think it's as scary as a word anymore that it was. Even when I went vegan, I mean, I went vegan almost 7 years ago. I can absolutely see the change in people's perceptions of veganism and just eating food in general. But at the same time, those foods aren't necessarily always accessible by people, nor is that kind of the food that we want to encourage people to eat all the time, right? So it's this balance. It really is a balancing act.
So tell us your story. How did you go vegan? I mean, was that sudden? Was that...
So I was vegetarian over 20 years ago, and I didn't even think it. My partner at the time just one day said, I'm going to be a vegetarian. And I went, okay. And that was it. I was vegetarian. And I was vegetarian for years. And then we separated, and I met Ray, and I was a vegetarian. And then I got pregnant with my son, and I started craving, I want to say I started craving animal flesh. I was probably just craving fats and stuff like that because I have a baby growing in me. But I convinced myself that it was protein that I needed. It was obviously that I needed something from animal flesh, so I started eating it again. And then 7 years ago, I saw the "Why Love One But Eat the Other" poster on the Toronto subway from the Toronto Save movement. That I Save? What's it called? I Save?
I Vegan.
I Vegan. It was a campaign. It was their second campaign, I believe. And it had posters about chickens and cows and pigs. And the poster I saw was about pigs and about mothers singing to their babies. And I'm a mother of two, and that hit me like that was it. I read that and I was like, oh my gosh, how could I ever have started eating animals again? And that was it. I that day I was like, I don't want to eat animals anymore. And I'm, and that's it. And I mean, it was just me. It was just all about me. I was just thinking about me at the time and trying to alleviate my guilt. I didn't even think about my family. It was just, I needed to get this guilt out of me. And so that's where my journey happened. And it happened over the course of like maybe almost a year. And I'd always wanted to be an activist. And, I always used to see like, Greenpeace and think like, oh yeah, like I really like to do something like that. But I never got involved in Greenpeace. So clearly that wasn't my form of activism. And it wasn't until I saw those posters and saw what the Save movement is doing that I was like, that's the activism that I want to do. So once I started eliminating animal products out of my diet, I went to a fundraiser hosted by the Save movement. They were raising funds for activists who were charged for blocking a truck at a slaughterhouse. And that was it. I met the community, and which is so important. That's another thing that VeganAblers are doing. They're building communities, right? We need communities, chapters all over the world of VeganAblers, building these communities and giving people the support. And that was it. I became an activist almost immediately. And then, right after, like, that was really what switched from it being about me to, like, no, I want everyone that I know, they need to be vegan. And so it quickly just became like, this house, there's no more animal products allowed in this house. I can't tell you what to do outside the house. I can't, enforce that. But in this house, it's not happening anymore. Because I did at first cook it, and I was just like, no, this is just so wrong. So yeah, within probably just no more than a couple months, the house went vegan. And it definitely put a strain on Ray's and I's relationship, because I could, I'm in a completely different headset, and I can understand how he can see it. So he went vegan probably about less than a year after I went vegan. And then our son, who was 14 at the time, we asked him if he would watch Earthlings, and he did. And the next day he went and bought animal product with his lunch money, and we were like, oh, gosh, but then he was going to visit his grandparents that weekend, and we said, okay, well, we need to bring food for you. What do you want? And he's like, oh, well, can you get me some of that vegan meat that we've been eating? We're like, oh, what does that mean? What does that mean? Like, does that mean you're vegan? And he's like, well, yeah, and he did. He went vegan that day, and that was it. He's been vegan for over 6 years.
This is kind of an important story, because he just, saw that his family were gravitating towards this vegan thing. And he went, well, what have I got to lose? Let me try it. And he just never looked back. He just went, there's absolutely nothing difficult about this. So, while we're trying to encourage people to get through their hang-ups with food, some people, and especially this younger generation, they've got a good mindset to just figure out where tradition helps you and where it's in your way, and just go with what works.
Right.
And I think that we've got you to thank for that mindset the most, because you've got this Climate Healers campaign. That's the CEO is your granddaughter.
Right.
And that's such an important. It's cute. It gets a lot of attention for that, but it's so profoundly important to recognize we're not creating a world for us.
Right.
I've had discussions with us of what's the right level of activism, what's the right level of pushing a vegan perspective, and people are saying, well, my mother would have difficulty with that. We're not aiming up; we're aiming back. We're preparing the world for the next generation. So if anything is trying to fit the greatest generation, the boomers and the Gen Xers, we're Gen Xers, into the framework, we're probably looking in the wrong direction. We're probably trying to do present-oriented activism, which is preserving the status quo. Isn't it really any kind of activism at all?
Right.
It'd be lobbying for things that you think this government would be able to give you just from asking. So we need to have a future-oriented activism, and that means an activism building the world for the children that are going to inherit the world. And we're always looking at the marketing, because market organizations really want to know how to sell to the millennials and sell to the Generation Z, the most fluid cash flowing around. They want to be part of that, and they don't want to lie about it. They want the absolute truth of market statistics, and they're totally embracing the vegan movement. So that is, so much encouragement to see a future and work your way back from that. And that's really what I think that our activism in our household has always been looking for, what that future is going to be. Believe in it, have faith in it, and figure out what are the obstacles you need to remove to get there.
And our daughter was going to university in Toronto at the time. She was in, I believe she was in Florence at the time, doing an exchange program when all that was happening. And then she pretty much wasn't living with us after. She went vegetarian pretty much on her own, not because of being here, and me not cooking for her because she wasn't around. But they used to have weekly I think it was like all you can eat meals at the university, and it was like $2 for the meal, and it was always vegan. And I just remember being like, that's amazing. And she was like, half the school's vegan, Mom. Half the students here are vegan. So like their generation gets it, and they're the ones that are going to solve this for us, right? So, and we talk to our children all the time about what they want for the future, and like they don't want to have children. They're really scared of what's going to happen.
Right.
So we owe it to them to do our part.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I think back about some of the decisions I made in my life, and I have this sense of shame, that I waited so long before I opened my eyes, right? What the heck was I waiting for? I don't know what I was waiting for.
For me, it's even worse because I was vegetarian, and I didn't even hear the word vegan when I was a vegetarian. I did not know that existed, but then when we moved out of the city, we met someone who was vegan, and she was pretty much a raw vegan. She was our neighbor, and she was an ethical vegan, but she didn't really talk about it. We just knew her as to be this raw vegan woman who like made spreaded bread, right? And so we were just always like, oh, well, vegan must mean health, and well, we don't want to go there. So it's very noble of you, right? And so thinking, oh, if she had just like said just a few more things, because I know I would have been open to it, because I'd been open to it in the past. I know that if she had said something, I'd be like, absolutely. And I could have been, it's always that could have, what could have been, right? And I could have been vegan X many years longer, but, it
Right.
happened the way that it happened. And, we're the point is we're on the right path now.
So that's the case of the vegan that wasn't pushy enough, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's always that flip side. And I think that the pushy vegan is a myth created by people who really would like to continue all their habits without any sort of challenge.
And that's not what VeganAblers are, right? Like that would be, sort of something in the structure, like we're not creating materials. We're not creating, again, that's sort of differentiating ourselves from Challenge 22 or Vegan Outreach, where they have like material and they teach them, right? Like I want it to be very autonomous, where you approach it in the way that you see fit, but there's going to be like overarching, ways that you are not allowed to talk to people and, sort of like argue, things that, are going to be frowned upon or not tolerated, and definitely, we want people to come to us, right? Like, we're, and we're there for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure that we're showing the best side of veganism.
And there's going to be a lot of people that have that particular mindset, and quite often as people become activists, they get increasingly more radical or more comfortable in their lifestyle and less defensive about their choices. So people are in different stages, and there are many people of different temperaments that, like us, may have gone to door-to-door outreach training. We actually were trained to go door-to-door and go to particular communities,
Right.
and try to convince people to go vegan. So we did the sales training with a group of people, and we never ever brought ourselves to actually do it. When it came time when the campaign was launched, what a great idea! At the same time, terrifying to have that confrontation. You're now the door-to-door salesmen, which are already hated. Now you're going to add veganism on top of that.
Right.
So, and there's probably many really interesting stories that come of that. I kind of wish that I had done it, at least to try. But that is such a horrifying thought to so many people that I think that there's a way to promote veganism and make it entirely them in the driver's seat. They decide what they want.
Right.
So rather than that outreach of saying, go vegan, after people decide to go vegan, for whatever the reason is, their engagement with some sort of outreach organization or animal rights, or an environmental group, and they've decided that they want to go vegan and need some guidance, that's our sweet spot. That's where we want both the people who want to have their questions answered come to us, and also the activists that want to help facilitate that space come to us and become part of this VeganAbler family. Anybody can be a VeganAbler. You may already be a VeganAbler. Maybe, we're inspired by some people who, in Toronto, we have all-day vigils where rather than people disappearing whenever they get hungry, you feed them. So you find the money to put together a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then you have an all-day vigil, and you feed the activists. So some people that like to cook started making food for them. They weren't full-time caterers, but they kind of became caterers to the activists. And we've quite often tag teamed with them, and we make breakfast and lunch, and they make dinner. And it occurs to us that there must be somebody like that in every major city where there's a community of activists. There's those food-oriented people that really want to express their love for food, love for vegan food, and love that moment when somebody tries something and says, "I can't believe this isn't vegan. I can't believe this is vegan." And they might be caterers. There might be people who just love to make food, and there's plenty of overlap with the outreach people who may want to, as we have done. We went to a rib fest that happened in Ontario, and we were giving out free vegan meatballs at the gate as people were going in. So it's unofficial. We weren't sanctioned by the function itself, but they did food outreach, and people were just so fascinated with the food. Everybody was like, people were gathering around to get their free meatballs, and it was just such a great synergy between a food activist and an animal rights activist.
Right.
And it's really that space where those two meet that we really want to focus.
Speaking of unusual places to do outreach, Kathy is talking about doing it in a grocery store. Look out aisle 3, crazy lady pointing out vegan mayo.
Oh yeah, when I go grocery shopping, I'm always like being extra loud, or putting my stuff like at the top of my cart so people can like see vegan, the word vegan, and and other things you can do just as your own personal activism is, I know a lot of my friends here, they just have pictures, they clip into their cards, they wear them on their backpack. So, there's tons of activism that you could do, right? But the way that we see it, like going back to what Ray said, like, and again, influenced by you, Sailesh, like, we need to have a vegan world by 2026, and we believe that that's going to happen, and so all of this is needed, all this one-on-one coaching, all the, sort of quote unquote aggressive vegan tactics, it's all needed, but like, I want to just sort of facilitate that, the infrastructure, so that people, so it's just easy for people can see that it's easy, because you do one-on-one coaching, like one-on-one outreach, I should say, and maybe convert one person, like the birth rate, like you're not even outgrowing the birth rate of the, right? So of the population. So like, you're not like, oh yeah, we're going to hit 4, like, so like it needs to be something bigger.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So have you thought about sort of merging this with the SAVE movement so that you get everyone who's in the SAVE movement is a VeganAbler coach, becomes a VeganAbler coach?
Absolutely. That's on my my objectives, on my proposal to work with the SAVE movement and any other activists of, that. And the way that this grows is kind of how I see how the SAVE movement grew, right?
Right.
There's people in the background that's maybe driving certain programs or whatever, but all the save chapters are, for the most part, they're autonomous, right? They do their own thing. They could do their own type of outreach and activism and that, so I see it's, very similar to that. But yeah, like having chapters, I mean, we want to have chapters, with VeganAblers, so in Toronto, probably need hundreds, there's East End, there's the North, there's Toronto's huge city,
Right.
and have people, there for coaching or doing, various piggybacking off each other, quote unquote,
Right.
and doing different types of tactics to, spread the message.
Right. Right. And I also the idea of having a table at farmers markets. I know small businesses that grew by doing that. That they were very small, but they would just have tables at farmers markets, and then people got to know their names, and then it just blossomed from there. It became like a national chain. So the same way, I think I can see this growing by having VeganAbler tables at farmers markets. And farmers markets are open here in Phoenix. They may not be open in Toronto yet, but we have them open here. They're open in Los Angeles, People are going to farmers markets with the proper social distancing and so on, But
yeah, and like I said, like, even with the markets here, even when we were in lockdown, and like some parts of Ontario is starting to open again. So yeah, the markets and all the markets and that they're going to be opening up. But the markets here adapted by going online. I just wrote to one of our local markets that started last year and said, I'd love to start selling my stuff. People just order online and then they give you the order, right? And I know that every market wants to have at least one vegan vendor there, like food vendor. Every organizer of markets that I've talked to, I've only been turned down once, and it wasn't that the concept of like, just talking about it. And it's not because they didn't want to have a vegan food vendor there. It was where the positioning of the market was, and it was downtown in this like funky area in Toronto called Kensington Market. The market was held in an alleyway, basically, this little laneway adjacent to a restaurant. And I don't know if the restaurant owned that space, but the deal that they had was they wouldn't have food vendors, so that people who were at the market had to buy food from this business, and this business didn't sell vegan food. So I was like, that's preposterous. Like, that's so someone like me, and now I can't, why would I want to come to your market? Because I mean, they did have a few like vegan sauces and that, but like from a food, if I wanted to go buy a vegan sandwich or something, like I would have to go somewhere else because there was no options for me. So why would I want to support the market at all?
Right.
That's people love going to markets, and I love eating at the markets too. So other than that, though, I've had nothing but support anytime I've done pop-ups, and I've always been one of the, if not the most popular vendor at markets. Yeah.
So do you usually?
And I've been asked back. There was one that I was doing. They just stopped doing them. But when they were doing them, they're very selective in who they chose, because they wanted everyone to be able to be like basically the only type of whatever. So if you made, jewelry, you'd be the only jewelry person. If you made birdhouses, you own birdhouses. Right. And then there'd be food, and maybe they would have someone selling non-vegan, someone selling vegan, but I was the dedicated vegan person. So.
Yeah, I can see these pop-ups showing up with food that is vegan, but it is the exact analog of what you're used to, like your quiches, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I always make my food fresh, as you know. I stay up all night cooking for these, any orders I get, but then also for these markets as well. And people smell it as soon as they come in, right? So they are directly, they're instantly like drawn to your table, and curious, and children are as well, especially like you have cookies. Kids see cookies and like they drag their parents over because they want a cookie. Yeah. And then they'll have it and they'll realize like, oh, okay, it's not bad. It's actually really good. And a lot of times they'll come back and buy something else, right? They'll just go, oh, cookie. A cookie is that's safe. That's easy enough. A chocolate chip cookie. Like, how can you get that wrong? Even if it was vegan, right? And then they realize, wow, darn good.
Right. Yeah. So finally, I wanted to hear. I think Ray, your transformation to veganism is an amazing story.
Kelly went vegan first, and she mentioned that moment when she was looking at that poster in the subway, and I went, "Uh-oh." Of course, I was a complete meat eater at the time. I kind of had my arm around her, going, "Come on, Kelly, everybody's moving on. We got to keep moving." And she was like, "What? Pig mothers sing to their babies. Did you know that?" I went, "No, that's very interesting. Let's keep going." So our households had really kind of followed along and supported her while she went pescatarian. We went pescatarian. She went vegetarian. We went vegetarian. And she went vegan. And she started showing us a lot of documentaries. So the Forks Over Knives. And I became vegetarian, but not quite committed to it. I wasn't sure if I was going to stay vegetarian or not. And in January 10th, 2015, she took me to a bake sale. Vegan bake sale. It was a fundraiser for the Save movement. I think it was specifically for legal fees for an action that they did. And at the end of it was this movie called Cowspiracy, just a free screening at the end of this bake sale. So we stayed for that and we watched it. And I was giving to Greenpeace at the time. So at the end of the movie, I was like so frustrated. I was like, "Oh, I can feel that this is going to stay with me." I felt this kind of lasting burden that I had to either reconcile what this movie was telling me or go vegan. So I didn't go vegan on the spot. I wish that was my story, that I just went vegan and never looked back. But essentially, I was following Kelly's lifestyle and trying to make it work. So in general, it was vegan at home. And I gave myself permission to be non-vegan if I was out on my own. But I never did. It just never really came up. Anytime I was out on my own, I was looking for vegan options at places so that I could say, "Hey, Kelly, we can go to this restaurant."
But that was the first time we even connected veganism to the climate. So we both became climate vegans after that.
Yeah, they handed around a clipboard at the end of this screening of Cowspiracy. That was before it was on Netflix. And saying we're starting this new group called Climate Vegan. So I started making suggestions about what Climate Vegan could be to Anita Krajnc. So it's a spinoff of the Save movement. So now it's Animal Save and Climate Save and Health Save, the three chapters of the Save movement. Mm-hmm. So I became involved with Climate Save even before I was vegan. So I was suggesting different approaches and different marketing that we could put on the website. And Anita really, I don't know if it was intentional or just accidental. She was empowering me to do more and more with the website. So I started to take it, take ownership of it. And it's kind of hard to do as a non-vegan to be an organizer of Climate Vegan. And mine is one of those stories where there wasn't any epiphany. It was just that I realized that I had been vegan for several months and I hadn't committed to it. And I went, what was I afraid of? This has actually been quite simple and straightforward and fairly easy. There haven't been any severe temptation. So what was my problem all along? It was like the fear that I was going to end up stranded with no vegan options. That, I mean, what if I missed a meal? That's the worst that could happen. Then, and I'm actually, my doctor would say I could probably miss a meal or two and come out better for it. I've been the vegan with an appetite. That's kind of my trademark. We have to trade in at some point and fully embrace the full whole foods plant-based diet. But until then, we're kind of living this live by example of if this guy can go vegan, then anybody can find the food that they like on the vegan side. But I suppose one of the things I should mention is that I tried to debunk Cowspiracy. I went to the internet and tried to find the people who obviously would be totally against this and would try to find the caveats and the prove wrong all the science that was in it. And at first there wasn't anybody. And occasionally there would be a few people who would make some arguments against it. And I went, no, those aren't very good arguments. And also you are clearly extremely biased. You're a meat chef in Los Angeles, or you're a rancher. So, I mean, and one of the most contested moments in Cowspiracy is that Goodland and Anhang figure of 51% of all emissions attributed to animal agriculture. My investigation into that has probably been the most lasting effect in my recent life, that it's just pivoted everything in my life towards an understanding that there's a truth that is to be revealed. Right. It's something that's there, and it's not going to go away. It's just a matter of time before everybody understands that animal agriculture is not that happy farm that everybody forgives everything because it's part of this quaint cultural idea of America, of rural communities. It is an extremely destructive and dangerous industry, especially where animals are consuming so much of our resources, and we forgive it at the same time that we worry about our food security for the planet. So I think this is a really important part of where my activism has gone, and I really have to thank you for leading that charge. I became familiar with your work when you were presenting Cowspiracy to the European Union in Brussels. I found the video footage, and as a video editor, I was like, hey, look at this. Here's a couple hours of raw footage of people doing presentations. So I edited them down into 6 or 7 different little videos. Your presentation was one of them. I was inspired.
Well, we are all on this journey together, and it's an honor to have you on this journey with me. I think what you're doing is very important. I'm looking forward to helping in any way possible VeganAbler and making VeganAbler as successful as it can be. So
thank you. We can't thank you enough, Sailesh. Like, what the influence that you've had on our family. I mean, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't you. So, like, we're so grateful to everything that you've done, and yeah.
And I think it's a natural fit that the VeganAblers will be aware of any food healers projects that may be working in their community and really help to facilitate it, if not spearhead it. Start to get involved with the community and explain what Food Healers is all about, and maybe find those houses of worship that are willing to offer up their kitchen for a feeding program. I think there's, being the food person in the community is really what this is going to be all about.
Yeah, that's one thing we didn't really get into, is about food insecurity, but it's, COVID has just amplified it everywhere tremendously, right? So this is where VeganAblers, working with Food Healers can absolutely make it a huge impact. I mean, I know in Toronto we have tons of organizations that's making free meals for people who are in need, and I was part of one of them, and it wasn't vegan, but I actually had access to the document, and the amount of people who said no to vegan meals or vegetarian meals if they were given only able to have that option was so high. It was so discouraging, right? So I think there's definitely a need to have that happening, and with the education of why it needs to be whole foods, plant-based.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, I think I see that connection too. That having VeganAbler tables at farmers markets, serving these food healers food, giving it away to people. Yeah, I see it. Thank you so much for bringing all these visions together and making it happen. So I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Sailesh. Thank you for having us on the show.
And thank you for being here.
Very exciting.
Yeah.